Alright, finally getting around to reviewing the iPhone 12 Pro, which you probably know everything about already. But I say that not just because it's a phone you've probably seen a ton by now, but because there's also an extra truth to this device. It's actually a lot like its predecessor. So if you've had the iPhone 11 Pro already, then you probably know exactly what to expect. But I do want to still give my thoughts on this device, what my experience has been like, in case you're looking at this phone as one of your final purchases in 2020. So this is Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? These are my complaints and takeaways with the iPhone 12 Pro. Now, the parallels between this Pro device and last year's Pro iPhone are pretty obvious, but the subtle adjustments that Apple made this time around actually make quite the difference. In a little bit of a throwback to the older iPhones, the 12 Pro has flat sides and sharper edges compared to all of the flowing curves that define the designs of the last few years. I think this, with the matted colors, made it so that the iPhone 12 Pro is not a radically different looking phone, but it's still a great looker. Honestly, the feel of the phone is just different enough that it seems better. That said, if you have already been rocking an iPhone 11 Pro, the upgrade to the 12 Pro won't feel like that much of a leap. And yes, I love this specific blue edition because I'm a SoCal native, but also I legitimately like this color. Blue's not really my style, but this one has grown on me. But then you look around the rest of the phone and not too much has really changed. The 6.1-inch display is a slight bump up in both size and resolution compared to last year, while still pumping out nice colors despite the notch up top still being so prominent. At this point, it does feel kind of futile to complain about something we've been given for like 4 generations of the iPhone by now. Would it look better without this notch up here? Absolutely, but it's something that Apple has to make happen. If anything, I would have loved to see Touch ID come back, especially the kind that they put into the power button on the iPads. But thankfully, what's underneath the surface did get some noteworthy bumps. The storage options are in an upward trend, as Apple is offering 128GB on the base model compared to 64 last year. The Bionic A14 is now a 5mm process, which should mean better efficiency in both performance and power consumption. Personally, I've had no issues with any apps or any games, and the battery life has not given me any surprises in either negative or positive directions. But what I do come to the iPhone for are its cameras. After all, it's the phone that makes social media a bit easier. Yet it's also one of the creative tools that fellow YouTubers try to have on hand at all times for quick B-roll. That's something that I've always been told about, but I never really enacted in my own creator lifestyle. So this time around, as you might have seen in some previous videos, I went ahead and tested that notion. My Apple Watch SE review was shot almost entirely on the iPhone 12 Pro, with a little bit of due diligence for locking focus and exposure, and it did a great job. These triple 12-megapixel cameras on the back provide pleasing results in both photo and video, much to the tune of last year's Pro model once again. But enhancements like the LiDAR sensor and HDR video recording are there if they are needed, but in my experience, that hasn't really been the case. The things I enjoy about the iPhones are what they pay attention to for creators like myself. 4K on the front-facing camera is a prime example. But when you strip away the actual additions that were brought to this camera system, you're actually left with a slightly software-updated iPhone 11 Pro, which is again why I say if you're on the last phone, you're probably still gonna be alright. But that brings me to some analysis as to why you might actually upgrade from Pro to 12 Pro. If you're coming from pretty much any other phone other than the iPhone 11 line from last year, then you're still going to get everything that made the iPhone 11 Pro great and then some. But if you're looking for the absolute biggest and best of the bunch, well, there's another choice here. You'll have to put more money down for the iPhone 12 Pro Max. This is where I had one of my biggest gripes, because the cameras on the Pro Max are what got some actual real upgrades. The sensor shift stabilization is a smartphone version of the same in-body stabilization that I look for in my work cameras, and the larger sensor means that it will just be able to handle photos and videos in more situations. You simply get none of that in the Pro, alongside of course the size of the display and the battery. And that Apple started to draw the line so clearly it was just kind of upsetting. So now Pro seems to mean telephoto lens and higher storage capacity, but then Max means bigger and better, especially in the cameras. That's what I want, without the beefier and harder to handle phone size. As it turns out, I went ahead and got the iPhone 12 Pro Max as well, and I've been using it as well. So I will give you my thoughts on that phone along with a real-world camera test coming very soon. Now, in keeping with the supposed reasons to upgrade, the 5G addition to the iPhone 12 line was one that needed to happen, but I'll keep this particular section simple and say it should not be the main reason why you get these phones. 2020 was definitely not the year that proved how important 5G is to us right now. And even if you do plan on getting an iPhone 12 Pro and you are going to use it for the foreseeable future, I still think that by bypassing the 5G price hike, you can save a little bit of money and maybe go for the iPhone 11 Pro. I feel the same way about Magsafe. Yeah, some of you MacBook faithful were probably happy to hear the term again, but it's not quite the party you might have expected. A whole line of accessories have yet to really prove to us the possibilities of Magsafe. Honestly, at its core, it's still just a simple way of securing a wireless charger to the back of the phone. The cases and the wallets are all fine and dandy, but they're not revolutionary in the least. I still don't think anyone should put any important cards in the Magsafe wallet because even if it's kind of secure, it's still a piece that can be easily dislodged and then lost. Actually, Moft recently released their Magsafe wallet stand, and it's a great example of the kind of ingenuity that the new system can bring. But just like the way I feel with 5G, I honestly think that Magsafe should not be a deciding factor in your purchase of an iPhone 12. Besides, it's not like you'll be wanting 4 accessories because iPhones are the most supported by third-party accessory makers. Case in point, if you're not into all of the magnets for whatever reason, you can still use regular Qi wireless chargers, and one that's really cool is this Moshi charger, the Auto Q. It still provides 10-watt charging, especially if you pair it with one of their high-powered charging bricks, and it's still a great alternative, especially if you only have one MagSafe charger, which is the case for me. Accessories like this and the MagSafe Moft just show how much support Apple has, so if you find a couple of holes in the experience, you can always just get a couple of items to fill the gaps. And if there's anyone that will prove the usefulness of Magsafe, it'll be one of them. We'll see how far they go, but for now, you can always rest assured that any product in the Apple ecosystem will have the support of so many third parties that customizing your experience can feel kind of limitless. So at its most basic level, the iPhone 12 Pro and all of the iPhone 12 line basically are more than equipped to provide a good everyday smartphone experience. Given the support that the Apple App Store gets from just about any kind of application you can think of, it's easy to see why people stick with iPhones once they've set up their own little ecosystems. Yes, this is a specific example, but many people will tell you that the reason why they carry multiple phones is because social media applications like TikTok and Instagram just support iOS more consistently. And then there's of course the product ecosystem. I'm certainly beginning to understand for myself just how well everything blends together because I'm on an Apple Watch more than any other wearable lately. Other than that though, I actually have an M1 MacBook Pro now, and after a bit of an adjustment period, I can actually say that things like syncing iMessage and airdropping with reckless abandon have been highlights. So the point I'm trying to make here is that last year, I got the iPhone 11 Pro because it's one of the more reliable devices for the work I do. But with Apple convincing me to try more of their products in 2020, I actually find myself more in the walled garden now than ever before. Okay, I can't let that statement go without complaining about it just a little bit. I've never said in my career that Apple devices were bad or worse than their counterparts. If anything, the fact that you can get so comfortable in this system that is almost what you see is what you get is really valuable for basically any casual user. But the comfort zone of the iPhone 12 Pro is also something I just can't really shake off. It's a phone that is not flashy or particularly special compared to what was offered before it, and actually compared to what is being offered now alongside it in the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Updates to iOS actually further this. They have actually made the user experience even more convenient by adding in what they considered to be complicated up until now. Things like widgets are now part of the mix, even if they have to adhere to the top left grid alignment system. And you know what? Many of the included widgets give enough of a glance at useful information. The Siri Suggestion app widget in particular is actually pretty accurate to what I'm using at the moment, and that same level of light learning is being applied to the app library. Go figure, we have an app drawer now. Sure, I had to remove all of my icons from the home screens to get this pseudo app drawer experience, but once that task was done, this iPhone was just about as clean on the interface as any of my adjusted Android phones. And I found that once this iPhone was set up, it was easy to just keep coming back to it. And I find myself doing that so much that reviewing everything else in my queue actually gets a little bit harder. I have to actively tear myself away from Apple devices like the iPhone 12 Pro just to do my job more effectively. So I think that the same things that make these devices so appealing are also what someone like me has to be most wary of. So yes, the iPhone 12 Pro has become my go-to device in my everyday double carry, but its reliability has also made way for a comfort zone. For all that it offers, the iPhone 12 Pro is an experience where the term just works can also be translated to safe. And there are definitely times where I find myself itching for some excitement or at least something different somewhere else. And so there you have it, my thoughts on the iPhone 12 Pro. It is certainly a very capable device, it is definitely a Pro model, but at the same time, there's a little bit more that you can find in different devices like the Pro Max in the very same line. On the other hand though, if you are using an iPhone 11 Pro right now, I actually don't see a whole lot of reason for you to go up to something that is feeling just as familiar as that, and ultimately just as safe as it was before. With all that said, however, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Let me know what you think of the iPhone 12 Pro if you're using one right now, or if you went for another iPhone 12 model, let me know in the comment sections down below. At the very least, drop some likes on this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. With all that said, again, I will call it on this one. Thank you so much for watching. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and enjoy your tea, everybody.